Well, hey there, my friends. How's everyone doing today? Fantastic. Me too. And I hope that continues. I am currently on the Carpo Quarantine for the first time in 18 months. I've managed to make it through this entire COVID situation without being exposed, as far as I knew, to anyone who was sick. And so, up to this point, that's been the case. Naturally, last weekend when I went to my fish concert for 3 days, it was in the back of my mind that I was very likely to contract it or at least encounter many people who had it, especially knowing that vaccinated people can spread it just as easily. So, I don't want to get into the details or the arguments about, how dangerous it is or isn't, nor how healthy one person is or isn't. I know that people have been a little bit surprised when they find out that I have not got the shot yet. They're like, why aren't you vaxxed? I say, well, look, I'm not anti-vax. In fact, I just took my son in last week to get his Tdap booster for school. I believe that there are certain vaccines that are very beneficial. And I don't really feel I need to justify my reasoning for not getting this one because it would just open up too many doors into Pandora's box, which we're not talking about here. So we went to the fish show. My son, who is 26, him and his band came and they played, and I posted some of their live performance. They played a phenomenal set, but after we got back, he started to have a sore throat. And then yesterday, he said, I can't smell anything. And I said, great. I mean, we have my wife and I, plus our two younger kids, plus him, as well as my mother, who was watching the kids while we were gone, that we came home. And, so I was a little bit wary about going, but at the same time, we all take risks. And so yesterday he went and bought one of the self-tests, the home tests, and said, I'm positive, and so is the guitarist. Right now he's over with the guitarist, and they're just sick together, playing guitar and practicing music. And which leaves my wife and I like, are we positive or are we not? And that's the interesting part. I went down earlier to the pharmacy to see if they had any tests. They said they were out, and that the other place was out. My son called around. In the long run, I found a Walgreens where I went down and I bought 2 bottles of zinc, which may or may not help with the immune system, 2 bottles of vitamin C, which may or may not help with the immune system, and just in case they don't help, I've got the day and night cold remedy, with the intention that I don't intend on getting sick at all, but if something were to happen, I would love to have the things on hand to at least prevent or to ease the ailment. But the most important thing I got was one of the last 10 boxes of these, and these are like $25, I think, with tax, like $26 with tax each. It's a double test kit, so each one of these has 2 home strip tests for COVID. And I'll show you how they work here. So I have 6 tests, basically. You open up the box. It's got your instructions and your cards. And it's got its little setup here. It's got these 2 vials, which have a liquid in it. You put it in the little vial holder thing. What you do is you grab one of the sterile foam-tipped applicators. They're basically glamorized cotton swabs. And you put it up your nose. You don't have to stick it into your sinuses. You just move it around a few times. Then you put it in the tube for a minute, and then you squeeze it out. Then you put one of these test strips in there and leave it in there for 3 minutes, or I think it's 5 minutes. Anyway, it's all in the instructions. And it'll tell you, generally, you may have a false negative, but you're not really going to have a false positive. If it shows a positive, it's showing the proteins, and it's recognizing the actual virus itself. So right here I have 3 test kits with 2 each. And with the cost that I had to pay for these, I don't really want to just use them willy-nilly. Now you can go in and get a free test. Yes, you can go in. That's what we did before we went to fish. Now, mind you, let me back up for a minute. Yes, I did go to the concert unvaccinated. And a lot of people who are vaccinated were really upset with the fact that they were even allowing people in there without being vaccinated. But let me just back up for a minute and say, in retrospect, I'm guessing that the people who were vaccinated felt much more confident about their status and were much more likely to not wear a mask. And we know that asymptomatic spread and spread through vaccinated people is very possible. Very much more prevalent than we may have thought. And this idea of these breakthrough cases being rare, the percentages I've looked at, the only people I've known who have gotten it have already been vaccinated. Him and his drummer and one of their other friends who's just slightly sick. All four of my neighbors down the street, and they were vaccinated as well. I still support vaccines, like I said. Just because I haven't gotten this one doesn't mean I won't, and it's probably the most ambivalent thing I've ever been about anything. But looking at the statistics, I have to make my own decisions. And I decided, well, if I get sick, I get sick. And it's almost this, I don't want to get sick, but it's almost like getting this over with kind of thing, if you know what I mean. And it would be a wonderful feeling if I could go just get a shot, and that would give me the feeling of it being over with. But like I said, I know people who are sick, have been sick as a dog, and they've already had their shots. We are facing a pandemic that will turn into something what they call endemic, an endemic virus which will be with us, I believe, for years to come. Even if the United States were to get to this herd immunity state, even if we were able to get everyone fully vaccinated and we were able to beat it here, we still have Africa, we have Asia, we have all these pockets around the world where people travel freely back and forth, where there's no way to really stop this travel, the business, the way the world works. And it will continue to mutate in other regions and return to us, and mutate and return to us, and mutate and return to us. And every single time we're going to have to adjust the, vaccines and how they respond to the RNA proteins. And I guess I'm not trying to lend a negative tone to this, but rather say, once we realize we're not just going to overcome this year, or this isn't just the third wave, it's just like saying the flu is a third wave, or a fourth, or a fifth, or a 100th. The flu comes every year. It rises and falls, and I think perhaps this thing might peter out to where it's not really that big of a deal, and it just ends up being something that only, affects the extremely frail and weak, like a lot of diseases do. But we just can't tell at this point. We don't know. And being one of the last holdouts on the shot, it makes me feel awkward because I'm not sure exactly really, when I tell people that who do have it, they're like, well, how could you not do this? It's good for society, that you're doing it for the other people, the elderly, you're doing it to protect those around you as well as yourself. And I say, that's true. But you can still spread it. So really, it's just about protecting you, not other people, in the bigger picture. And I just hope I'm healthy enough to handle it. I'm not going to worry. Everything gets blown quite out of proportion. And it's funny because a year ago, I had a completely different opinion on this. I still take safety precautions. I still wash my hands, don't touch my mouth, wear a mask in public places when I'm in a crowded area, except this weekend at Fish. And that one exception was enough to cause a bunch of the people in my group to at least catch it. So I'll just hope I'm not one of those statistics. And if so, that I make it through well. This may either just be a brief passing event here, or I may be giving you updates each day as I go, I'm sick. But I don't even want to put that suggestion out into the universe, because I believe in the power of intention and the power of the mind, The power of placebo. The idea that you can overcome your illnesses by, being aware of them. It's interesting. A novel virus really knows no bounds. I mean, none of us have been exposed to anything quite like this. The fascinating thing is why certain young people are highly affected by it while others are not, and why some old people just breeze through it, no problem. There have been some studies suggesting that up to 80% or more of the people who catch it don't even show any symptoms at all, asymptomatic carriers, which leads one to wonder why. Well, I did a little bit of research into this, and there is some modern research, and I mean modern over the past few months. When I say modern, dealing with COVID, it's only been a year and a half. So everything we've learned in that time, we're learning as we go. And I believe it was in April or May when they used this study of 4,000 people, and they did a genetic breakdown of their genetics, people who had severe COVID. And they did find genetic markers, which I'm not going to name out all the CQ487, whatever gene markers they are. But the point being that These specific genetic markers were passed down from either Neanderthals or Denisovans, which were another humanoid or hominid species, if you will. And some of these can be useful genes, and some of them are not. We don't understand half of how genes work. I mean, decoding the genome just means we can see what it is. But we still might think we can get rid of one gene or change it, and it'll completely alter an entire system, in our bodies. It's wild the way our perfect systems have created this genetic code that can protect us against certain variants, certain diseases, bacteriums, viruses. And we find out that we evolved with these viruses, with these diseases, meaning that if something came up once, I'm sure it's not the first time, a coronavirus, right? I mean, we know there's plenty of them. At one time or another in history, tens of thousands of years ago, humans were hit by several different viruses, but they were kept to pockets because that's how humans lived. But the idea is that the ones who did survive, the very few who may have survived a major viral outbreak in, the days of the caveman, could have possibly passed that genetic marker on. It's what they call epigenetics. What you experience in your life is passed on to your next of kin. And there have even been studies in, the last few centuries. There was a time when there was a major famine, and all the people in one European nation, I don't recall where, a particular region, in this one particular family, they only could eat one type of food. It was like wheat or, something like that. But for starving and eating one type of food for so long, it did something to his genome, which was passed on to his kids, which changed the way that they process that same food. Maybe that's a horrible way to explain it. In other words, the things we experience in our life, we passed on those tendencies to our kids. If we're anxious and nervous, we might pass on those in our genetics, that they might have more anxiety. It's true, but we don't understand to what degree. And the fascinating thing about this is that they found certain genetic markers and traits that make you more likely to have severe COVID. Now, we, proletariats, we weaklings, we mere useless eaters, the poor people of the world, we can't go out and afford to go out and have a genetic test done to see if we have these markers, nor go out and just afford to go get antibody tests and metabolite tests and figure out how our bodies are going to interact with any particular disease. Most of us are set at the mercy of some cheap-ass $23 home test strip to hope that we're not sick. But anyway, my side gripe there, I don't have insurance, and I never have. It's too expensive, and I don't qualify for state. So it's like, I've never been able to go to the doctor and just, have something checked out. But that's life. So to wrap this up, I really don't know how bad COVID is. I'm still weighing the options on this. It's like so few of the actual victims are children, for example, but kids die from the flu as well. A year ago, I would be saying, quit comparing it to the flu, and, don't minimize the danger here. And I still believe it's dangerous. As even, I was talking with somebody earlier, and they said, 80,000 people died a couple of years ago from the flu. And that's true. It was a bad year. And a lot of people don't realize this. 80,000 people did die a few years ago. On average, 30 to 60,000 people in any given year in the U.S. die from just the flu or complications associated with it. But more importantly, and to remember this, 8,000 people die each day in the U.S. from all causes. 650,000 people die in the U.S. each year from heart disease. It's the same amount as died from COVID. Actually more, because it's been a year and a half now. But it doesn't matter whether it's more or less, or whether the precautions have helped us or not. That's a lot of people. And people take a lot of risks. The burgers we eat, smoking, drinking, the things that we do, which as adults we choose to do. It's difficult to navigate this new world, like COVID is set aside as something completely different. As adults, I guess we have to work through this. I haven't changed my opinion on the fact that a lot of people have been saved by preventative measures. And I'd like to make a declaration and clarification here that I firmly believe that anybody who is immunocompromised or elderly should be vaccinated. But as far as those who are healthy and young, I have my reluctance to think that that might be the best approach. But that's to each individual to decide. But even me suggesting that it's a personal choice makes me the bad guy in a lot of people's eyes. That's why YouTube censored one of my videos before and gave me a strike on my channel. I never was against or for anything. I was just giving my opinion. But I think these are important topics that need to come out, especially with the children issue and what's going on in schools right now. The masking issue, which a while back I said, okay, God, get over it. The kids wear masks for a while and then we get past this. And I still feel that's true. Back then, but not now. No, after a few months, we found out that this wasn't working. And I heard somebody say the other day, and this was in a school board meeting that I was watching, and she said, and she just sounded like some QAnon nut. She said, there are no studies to show that, masking children helps to prevent anything. And I thought, okay, well, that's a possible claim. The way she said it sounded lunatic, but I thought, I'm going to look this up to make sure, because I'm starting to have my own doubts too. In other words, I looked into it, and sure enough, a study found that there was a marginal, if any, difference between kids who were masked up and not masked up in the classroom, because kids are not great vectors for transmission. I want to clarify, adults do have a higher viral load and do tend to spread it more easily. But children, if they're not getting heavily infected, they might pass it on, but they don't have a heavy viral load, and they're not big vectors for spread. We're learning this now. Beyond the fact that kids spit and lick their damn fingers and, put hands in each other's mouths, of course they're going to spread it around. But it's not, I don't think that the mask option in schools, I think that the damage it's doing to kids for an entire year wearing those things is much greater than the virus would do itself. I mean, kids need to be able to see their teacher's face and vice versa. And you see, by even saying that, now I start to feel like a little bit of a lunatic. Like, what are you talking about? It's just something we just do for a little while. God, Carpo, we'll get past this, and we work as a team, and we all get vaccinated, and we all wear masks, and we'll all get past this. Up till a few months ago, I was totally on board with that, man. Absolutely. But I'm starting to have my doubts based on the research I've seen. I still support preventative measures. I still think vaccines are safe and effective for those who are compromised or elderly. And I also still believe masks stop transmission only from the person who is talking. I've seen how spit comes out of a person's mouth when they talk. If a mask can prevent a little bit of that from going into my mouth, so be it. And in a crowded space, that might be a good thing. At the very least, if you think you were exposed to somebody who was sick, just doing it for a bit out of courtesy. But it's become such a contentious issue, such a hot button topic, and such an argument between people that I'm just disgusted with human behavior all around the board. The people on the left shaming those who don't get vaxxed, and those on the right claiming, and not right and left, really, it's the extremists. The people who, it's my way or the highway, right? Do as I say. Do as I do, right? If you follow their example, then you're a good person, and if you don't, you're a piece of shit. That's how a lot of people think. It's pretty sad. Anyhow, I think I've already rambled on long enough about this. I suppose I should take one of these tests. I was going to take the Binax Now one, but the whole display was empty, and maybe I should give that as a word of wisdom to anybody out there. If you are concerned about knowing if you have COVID, you can go down and request a free test, but the Walgreens was booked up solid. Like when we got one, we had to get one to go into fish. That's what I was going to say earlier. The people who were vaxxed could still spread it, but those who got a test before they went in, which was everybody had to have a written test, done at the actual pharmacy, printed out showing that you got a negative test within 48 hours of going in, meaning that I didn't have at least a viral load when I left home, hopefully. But those ones are free at any pharmacy, and they shouldn't charge you for them, even though some people have been getting charged a few $100 for them. But the Binax Now or the Quickview tests are about $23 plus tax, wherever you're at, and they're 2 in each package, so it's $12 per test. and they're easy to use. You can find them anywhere, but you won't be able to find them anywhere for long, because as the Delta thing becomes more prevalent, more people are wanting to know if they have it or if they're sick, and they sell out from the pharmacies. So I would advise anybody who wants to know to go out and buy some soon, depending on where you live, because they will sell out quickly. It's just good to have shit like that on hand. As far as these things, zinc, vitamin C, I have no idea. The truth is, I've been taking a bunch of my mushroom blend capsules. I took a shitload before I went, and when I got back, I took a whole bunch. It's my own blend. It's a reishi extract, chaga extract, which are both phenomenal immunomodulators. Then it also has some lion's mane in it, cordyceps, I think, and then a whole bunch of smaller secondary ones. Maybe not rhodiola. I don't recall. There's the specifics. I'd have to look at the list, but I did a whole bunch of research on herbs I thought would be good for immunomodulation that have been shown to benefit. And they're mostly mushrooms. And I just take like 6 or 7 capsules several times a day whenever I can. And I feel great. I don't know if my immune system benefits from that, but I'm hoping that it does. And we'll see if I come up here tomorrow going, oh, I can't talk. That won't happen. I can still smell my hands. I can still smell my vape juice. That's what my son said. He couldn't smell his vape juice anymore. So I was like, oh shit, that sucks. So anyhow, thanks for coming along, and thanks for listening. And I'll talk to y'all next time. Hopefully just as chipper as I am today. Be well.